Hello, everyone. This is Reverend Dr. David Chotka, and I'm delighted today to involve a couple who I've come to know quite well over the last couple of years. This is actually a healing prayer story and a conversion story, and it's kind of married together. And the conversion that of this couple and their subsequent baptism and entrance into the life of faith really was sealed with a healing prayer story. So, hello, David. Hello, Tennille.
Hello.
Good to see you. I met Tennille when I needed to buy a car, and I called the car dealership that she was working at. She was the salesperson who happened to be on call that morning. It was early in the day, and subsequently went out there. And oh my, did she get me a deal? It was a marvelous car that I'm driving to this very day. But in the middle of this, we started talking about faith in Jesus. So tell me what happened inside of you when that was occurring.
Well, it was one of those moments where I was sitting with you and you had already bought the car. So I kind of was in the spot of, well, whatever I say, I can't really mess up my sale now. So we were just kind of asking questions. And when it had come out that, you were a pastor, and my response was, you can't be a pastor. You're too happy. And I still remember that because you laughed at me. And every single, religious person I'd ever met as a kid just seemed to be, I don't know, either frustrated with me because I had a bunch of questions, or was just, like, oh, this girl's whatever, and just kind of blew me off. So I had always had questions, and I'd always felt a calling on my life for, like, some type of religion, but I never had the opportunity of someone to take me seriously.
Really? Okay, I didn't know that part. So I remember I was talking. We wound up buying a car because the car that we thought we were going to buy for my son wasn't going to work because his job was going to end, et cetera, et cetera. And so we had many a chat. And I remember there was a moment where I drove into the parking lot and I looked at a car that had just driven in, and I heard it in my spirit. 13,000 kilometers, an old man keeps the car immaculately clean. So I said, that vehicle right there, has it got 13,000 kilometers, and was it owned by an older gentleman who always kept the thing immaculately clean? And you looked at me and you said, how did you know? You remember that?
Mhm.
That was quite funny. Anyway, that was how the car we eventually bought. In fact, it was completely true. That's what you call, like a download from God. It happened as I was walking out of the parking lot. The thing hadn't even been cleaned yet. So anyway, you booked in like a whole series of oil changes, and every time I went for an oil change, we'd wind up talking about Jesus. And so, did you look forward to those, or was it kind of weird or strange, or what was it like for you?
No, it was wonderful because when you work in a dealership, there's always a sense of kind of like a dreary, everyone's against each other. You're kind of helping people, but you're kind of hoping that, they quit so you can take their, their leads and stuff. So you kind of get to this spot of, it's kind of a toxic place to be. So whenever you came in, it was like, oh, sweet. Like I'm supposed to be talking to my customers. I'm just going to talk to you about what you love. So you would bring in this, joyous, bubbly, talk to us about Jesus. And then, the people in back knew who you were, and they knew, like, oh, okay, don't ask him about God because he'll be here for 30 minutes. And then there's me, the first thing out of my mouth is, so what did you preach to, at the end of the day? So it was delightful. It was just a kind of way to perk up my day halfway through whenever I saw you.
There was a moment where the oil changes were going to end, and I got to the spot where it was going to be my last chance to talk to you. And I was saying, Lord, she needs to believe in Jesus. And she's so close, and she's always hungry and asking about this. What do I do? And I wound up picking up some invitation cards for the new Alpha that we were launching at the church. We hadn't had one before. And I drove out, and it wasn't a convenient day, but it was the last possible day I could get my oil change. And I said, oh, God, I can't talk this meal today. I can't do it. I have to write my sermon. It has to get done. And I was standing at the desk to book the oil change. And you raced over and you said, I can't stand it. I can't stand it. I got to talk about faith with you once a week. I said, how about over cake and coffee on a Sunday night? You said, yes. So I passed you an Alpha card. And then you said, well, I want to invite my husband. So I passed you a second Alpha card. Well, I got some friends and my parents. Give me 5 Alpha cards. And I had 5 Alpha cards. I gave them to you. So you can loop the part in about inviting your husband. I think that's kind of a funny thing.
So okay. Like I said, I've always had a call and like a yearning for more information. And my husband, up until this point, had kind of just put his walls up and was like, I don't have an interest in church. I went to church for many, many years. It's not my thing. And he never restricted me from going, but it just seemed very much that me going with him was probably never going to be an option. And when I had this card and I talked to Pastor Dave, I just kind of conveniently left out that there was going to be anything religious there, that it was like a cake and coffee and greet and meet people thing. So when he had got there, I was fully expecting him just to look at me and glare the entire time, like, you totally set me up here. But much to my own dismay, he dove right in, had a bunch of questions. And at the end of the session, they kind of mentioned that, oh, this is an ongoing thing. This is going to be a couple of weeks. Would you guys be interested in coming back? And I said nothing because I was like, nope, I'm not going to say a darn thing. And David just kind of perked up and he goes, yeah, we'll be here.
Well, I remember for you, Dave, the thing that was helpful was the genetic scientist who had actually unlocked the secrets of the genome. He was the scientist who believed in Jesus, and that intrigued you. I remember that.
There was a number of different things. The historical validity of the original documents of the Bible, and the fact that there are so many, like a huge number of documents that are within a certain time span of when they were originally written, and we know that how accurate they are. And obviously Alpha can explain that a lot better than I can. And a lot of the very intelligent, learned individuals, like the gentleman you're referring to, I can't recall the scientist's name, and C.S. Lewis was also listed in there.
Yes, C.S. Lewis was a Christian, yes. And that's what caused the geneticist to realize that he could be a scientist, a scholar, and a Christian.
Yeah. And there was a lot of stuff with him in there, as well as a number of other things I can't recall off the top of my head because that was a number of years ago now. But yeah, it definitely spoke to the logical part of my brain and was able to rationalize a lot of these things that I questioned in my youth from going to a Roman Catholic church.
Okay, so the climax of the story, in my mind, was when there was a session on prayer for healing that was built into the Alpha series, and I think a young man walked up to you and asked if he could pray for you. Is that right?
Yes. So okay. There's a little bit of background behind that, and it was based on the fact where I had mentioned to you at the previous session saying, always wanted to be baptized, and it was kind of an offhand, like, oh, just la la la. But you looked at me and said, you're not baptized, and I said no, and you said we can fix that. So we had kind of made a soft plan of that we were going to get baptized, and about, I want to say 4 or 5 days later, I was at work and I was just going through my normal day-to-day things, and I turned and my kneecap came completely dislocated and then got stuck on the side of my leg. So I went from vertical to laying on the floor screaming because I couldn't move. I couldn't get up. I couldn't do anything. And all I could feel was pain. So I ended up with them calling the ambulance, and basically the doctor saying, like, this is going to be an ongoing thing for you. It's not something that we can easily fix. There was a surgery that they could do, but again, it's not a guarantee of stopping it from continually happening. So I ended up having to call you and saying, Pastor David, we have to put the baptism off. And I think you took it more from a side of, oh, okay, I think she's worried about it. So you had shown up on my door to be like, oh, okay, it's all right to be able to talk to me and kind of, I think, calm my own worries. And then you saw me in the brace and the crutches, and you said, oh, I get it. You can't get in the baptismal tub. And I said, no, I can't get in the tub. You have to climb into it.
Okay. So let's fast forward this to the Sunday, and you show up at the church, and we're having our evening Sunday thing with Alpha, cake and coffee. That's what we were doing at the time. And so you're in my table group, and there was a day retreat on the Saturday, and this was now the Sunday. I hadn't been at the day retreat, but you met a guy named Jared, and he offered to pray for you, right?
Yeah, he had walked up, and he was very kind and very calm, and he just asked, can I pray for you? And I had said, oh yeah, that's fine. You can pray for me, not really realizing what goes into that. And it broke into you also using that opportunity saying, okay, no, we're going to pray for your leg and that it gets healed, which completely shocked both me and my husband.
Yes, I remember the look on Dave's face. Dave, you said, okay, don't make her take that brace off. And it was almost like, don't do that. And I said, well, what can we do? And you said, well, look, if she sits on the floor and if she's able to lift her leg, we'll know it's healed. I said, oh, okay. And then, so I said, Tennille, why don't you get down on the floor? If I remember right, there were 5 or 6 people who gathered around at that point, starting to pray.
At
A lady
least.
named Serene, a lady named Sharon, there were 3 or 4 others who were watching, but I know that Serene and Sharon started to pray and I was praying. And we all gathered around. And I can't remember, did I put my hand on your shoulder? I think I did. Did I do that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I started to pray and I felt, for me, the signal for prayer for healing is that there's a rise of compassion and there's an internal fire that starts to burn. It's like a velvety smooth assurance of warmth and fire and peace with a specific focus on the person I'm praying for and a yearning for them to get well. And when all that happens all at the same time, I take that to be a signal that I should pray for healing. That happened. And so I think I said, in the name of Jesus, raise your leg. Is that correct memory? I think that's the way I said it.
I honestly, I can't remember now, because in the moment it was so overwhelming, because I went from just sitting at a table, having a cup of coffee and eating a cake, to a bunch of people I didn't know were on me, touching me, speaking in tongues. And all I can see is my husband is not moving, sitting at the table, just watching. And all I could feel as effect was like, I felt just physically hot. And
Yes.
then I remember starting to cry, and I'm not sure if the crying was the Holy Spirit or my own anxiety panicking at that moment.
Well, one of the signals that the Lord gives, the person who is receiving the healing feels that fire inside of them too. And the Bible talks about this, and we'll open that up in a bit. But I remember saying, so it was in you, it was in me, it was in the people we were around. All of us had this profound sense all at once. It was a shared gift of faith. I said, in the name of Jesus, lift up your leg, and you did.
Mhm.
So that was impossible because of the injury, and you did it. So then we had you stand up. I remember that. And you were able to stand unaided. That was amazing.
Well,
So
I was
then,
able to take a couple steps.
yes, and you hadn't been able to do that. So that's incredible. So Dave, what happened to you when you were watching this?
I mean, as I mentioned before, prior to that moment, I only had experienced a Roman Catholic type prayer
A
situation.
liturgical prayer where there's set prayers and that kind of thing. Yeah, kneelings.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
And so the moment that you and Jared started, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, like a crowd formed around us, and I was just flabbergasted. I just sort of like in and just didn't know what was going on. I know between that instance and other times, I think after that, I think that was the first big prayer moment for us. But in a few other times after that, having experienced that style of prayer with someone else, and it's an active, like, I don't want to say community-based thing, but it's definitely members of that community coming together. It's not just an individual praying for something. It can be, but it's these people coming together, and there's physical contact. There's like that fiery feeling that you get, and it's indescribable and undeniable. It's a sensation that happens only when you're praying like that. And
But was that the birthing of your faith when your wife was healed? Was that the moment where that occurred?
it was definitely a part of it. It was, I think, a collection of a number of start prayers like that, where it was that, but then also in subsequent ones, similar feelings, emotions, since it was consistent.
Yeah.
And it kept happening only when we were praying like that.
Yeah, that's called the testimony of the Spirit, or the witness of the Spirit.
Mm-hmm.
So, founder of Methodism, John Wesley, talked about his heart being strangely warmed. And in the Gospel of Luke, when the Emmaus Road happens, and there's this man named Cleopas walking down the road, and Jesus appears, he feels his heart burning hot within him. That's the kind of thing that is described in my Hey, Are You There? It's Me, God book. But the Healing Prayer book describes instances where you feel the presence and suddenly you cooperate with that. So the phrase I use is God initiates and we respond. Now, just for the record, you had to have scar tissue removed from your leg, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so there was a medical component to this, but your kneecap and the muscles were healed, but you had to have the scar tissue taken out, right?
Yes. So the doctor was able to take a look, and obviously he saw me, moving forward to just our appointments. And he had noticed that, my leg was looking better, that I was looking better. And he kind of inspected me, did a couple more, images, and he had noticed, he's like, you seem to be far more healed than what I thought. He's like, there's still a fair bit of damage, and a bone chip was stuck underneath. He goes, so I'd like to go in and get rid of the bone chip and put a screw in to just confirm that this doesn't happen again.
Okay, so what we have here is a combination of medicine and miracle. And the miracle event healed the muscle tissue, and the doctor removed the scar tissue and made sure that this thing wouldn't happen to you again. Anyway, those kinds of combo stories are found in this book, Healing Prayer is God's Idea. And this particular book talks about the miraculous instant heal. It talks about pathway to a remedy. It talks about ordinary natural healing. It talks about all of those in combination. And it talks about the victorious journey when we go to the other side. So if you want to learn about how to do prayer for healing, you can purchase this book, Healing Prayer, God's Idea for Restoring Body, Mind, and Spirit. Or you can come on board with this YouTube channel. We're going to have more healing stories like this. So thanks, Dave, and thanks, Tennille, for sharing your story. It's been a delight.
Thank you.